All right. Hello. Welcome to the GRadulting Workshop Series and happy Halloween. Our topic today is all about cars, how to buy one, how to take care of one. My name is Debbie McCutsky, and I am the coordinator of services and programs for graduate student legal aid, and I use she, her pronouns. So before we start the presentation, I want to make sure that you all know about legal aid, because in addition to workshops like the one we're having today, we do many other things to support students. Our attorney, Zach Mundy, provides legal support to students who have questions like, my landlord isn't following the lease, or I just don't understand my lease. Leasing issues are the number one concern that we see, but we help students with all kinds of other issues too. So we have an immigration attorney that we work with. In fact, we have appointments available on November 8th, which is next Wednesday. So if you are interested in that, please reach out. Check out our website. I will put a link in the chat in a few minutes here so you can follow up on that. We help students who've been charged by the university. I'm a notary. I can help you with that. We share a weekly briefing email that has information about our workshops, about our services, and a little bit of campus news. So if you paid your graduate student fee, then you paid for our services, and there is no additional charge. All good, right? So visit our website to learn more about our services and for instructions on how to request an appointment. So just a bit of housekeeping. Automatic closed captioning has been enabled for those who want to read along. Near the end of the workshop, I'll share a link to an evaluation. And we need your feedback, whether it be a compliment, a criticism, a suggestion. We want to make sure these workshops are helpful to you. So please share your feedback. We will email links to the survey, the slides, and the recording to you all tomorrow. It will go to everyone who is registered, and we'll also post it on our website. And of course, wouldn't be a workshop without Q&A. So we welcome your questions and comments. You can just put them in the chat and I will read them to the speakers. There may be a situation where we call on you to turn on your mic so we can ask further questions of you. But we want this to be a time for you to feel like you can dive in a little deeper and share your concerns. So I am so pleased to welcome our two speakers. They are both investigators with the Montgomery County Office of Consumer Protection, Sharon Margolis and David.Elswick. Their duties include handling individual consumer complaints and participating in community education and outreach, just like this today. Sharon Margolis is an attorney. She got her law degree from George Washington University. She is a member of the Maryland Bar. And Sharon has worked with Montgomery County's Office of Consumer Protection for the past 29 years. Yay, Sharon. So we are getting a highly experienced speaker today. And I also have to mention, Sharon, you may not know this, but you have been working with Grad Legal Aid since 2017. Thank you so much. All right, and we also have David.Elswick. He is a certified master diagnostic technician for Toyota and is currently certified by 8SE in 30 different categories. That means he really knows cars. He's worked at various dealerships around Montgomery County for the past 17 years. And he has extensive knowledge of sales, service, finance. He's the complete package. So Sharon, David, welcome, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
All right, Sharon, take it away.
Thank you. So David and I are with, as Debbie said, the Montgomery County Office of Consumer Protection. Our office does multiple different things. We handle disputes between merchants and consumers. We do have people available by phone every day to answer questions, by email or in person as well. We enforce the county's consumer protection laws. We educate and reach out to the community, and we license and regulate certain businesses, in particular, new home builders, motor vehicle repair shops, towers, secondhand personal property vendors, and appliance repair shops. So today we're talking about cars, and there's something that's going to run through all of the different topics that we discuss on cars, and that research is always going to be your best friend. You should never do anything unprepared. You need to know all about the cars you're looking at before you go shopping. You're going to want to decide what size and type of vehicle you need or want. While price is something you should consider, it's not the only thing that you should consider. Cost to maintain, reliability, resale value, all important things to think about. Consumer Reports does a cost of car ownership over time. Kelley Blue Book also does something similar, 5-year cost to own for different kinds of cars. You should never leave it up to the seller to tell you what you need to know. One of the first decisions I guess you're going to want to be making is whether you're going to want a new or a used car. There are advantages of new cars. They maybe have more advanced technology, better safety, connectivity, fuel efficiency. Might be easier to shop for them because you're generally going to be at a dealership. There may be more and cheaper financing options, manufacturer or dealer incentives, and of course a factory warranty. There can be advantages of used cars though. Usually it was lower price, although in this market, maybe not so much anymore. Less depreciation, lower car insurance rates. We'll talk a little bit about certified cars. That is a subset of used cars, maybe a little bit better of a car to start with, because there's limits on age and mileage. And there's usually some extended warranties or special financing that may come with that designation, but you still can't always trust that selection process. Warranties can vary, and you're going to need to compare financing that you can get elsewhere. In terms of doing your research, there's a lot of websites out there, such as Auto Trader, Cars.com, Car Gurus. Most of them will offer some research and shopping. So you're going to choose where you're going to look for a vehicle. The two main options is going to be a dealer or a private individual. Again, you're going to want to do your research. If you're going to go to a particular dealership, you can look for complaints with consumer protection offices, and also with the Motor Vehicle Administration. And since they are required to be licensed with the Motor Vehicle Administration, that is a source of information for how they've dealt with these dealers in the past. Maybe when you're at a dealership, you've got options for purchasing additional products like warranties. And dealers also have to put cars through safety inspection. When you're buying from a private individual, car may cost less, but there is less regulatory oversight. And there's always the concern that an individual may actually be an unlicensed dealer, what we call a curbstoner. So it's someone who's masquerading as the private owner of a vehicle. So you do have to be careful. And just a word of warning, I know payment apps have become very popular, but it's really not a good way to pay for a car, as they're difficult to trace if there's ever a problem with the car later. There is online shopping. Dealers do have their own websites, but their inventory can also appear on third-party websites. You got to be very wary when you're shopping on sites like Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace. There are, of course, companies that offer an 100% online buying experience like Carvana or Vroom, but there can be issues with those as well. Sometimes there's titling and registration problems. So it's always going to be very important to inspect any vehicle that you're looking at very carefully. This is even the case with new cars. You should always check for any body damage before you sign the paperwork. Used cars should be inspected by a mechanic and a body shop. Mechanical inspections are not the same thing as the safety inspection that the cars have to go through. Safety inspections only focus on things that make a car unsafe to drive. They're very bare bones, and it's not a comprehensive mechanical inspection. If a private party or the dealer is not willing to let you have the vehicle inspected by a mechanic in a body shop, that can be a red flag. And as I said before, you've got to be just as careful with certified used cars. Most used vehicles are required by Maryland law to undergo a safety inspection prior to the sale or transfer. And generally the seller or the transferor of the vehicle is required to obtain or to do that inspection. But in a private party transaction, either the seller or the buyer can do the inspection. So again, research. You want to find out as much as you can about a vehicle's history. You've probably heard of Carfax. It is a good resource, but you have to be aware that it's not always accurate. It can take time for things to show up on Carfax. You should always ask the seller questions, whether it's the dealer or a private individual. Has the car been in an accident? Where did the car come from? Ask to look at repair and maintenance records. And any representation that you get, you should get it in writing. That when you're buying a used car, it's buyer beware. If the owner paid cash for an accident repair and didn't file an insurance claim, it might not show up on a report. There is another company besides Carfax called AutoCheck. There's also a free source of information, the National Insurance Crime Bureau, NICB for short. That can tell you whether a vehicle's been salvaged or stolen. But the bottom line is, if you have an understanding about the vehicle, you want to make sure you get it in writing.
Excuse me, Sharon, I have a
Mhm.
question.
Mhm.
So I have bought a car and I looked at Carfax. Is there another place to double check or to confirm what Carfax is reporting?
Well, there are, like I said, there are other companies. AutoCheck is one. It's even that may not have the information, because again, it takes time for these things to show up, because they are reliant on people reporting things to them. So the most important thing really is going to be that mechanical inspection, mechanical and body inspection. So even if the Carfax is clean, that doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't a problem, and you should still always have a qualified mechanic look at it.
Thank you.
So you should always negotiate a selling price before discussing any kind of financing. Research again. You can find prices online at sites like cars.com, nada.com, kbb.com. You should never negotiate based on monthly payment. Do not ever tell a dealer what your budget is, because magically any car that you're going to be talking to them about will have the exact monthly payment that you told them that you were budgeting for. There are buying services out there such as Car Bargains and Authority Auto, and who will negotiate for you, and it may be worth the price if you're not comfortable with the process. I myself have used Car Bargains. I believe that costs about $300, and they will negotiate prices with a couple of different dealers and give you a whole report, and you can then choose between the different dealerships that they provided you pricing for. There are companies out there that have their own car buying programs, such as Costco, AAA, American Express, some credit unions. Those can be good sources for purchasing as well. The bottom line, your strongest help to you, the thing that's going to be the most helpful to you is your willingness to walk away. don't be afraid to do it. If you're not happy with the terms that you're negotiating, just walk out the door. You'd be surprised how often they'll come chasing after you. So once you've negotiated your price, you should know that you do have many options when it comes to financing. You are not limited to what the dealer offers. Banks and credit unions can finance vehicles as well. Once again, do your research before you go shopping. You can come to the dealership pre-approved. If you are using dealer financing, you should be aware that it may not be final when you take delivery of the vehicle. In the state of Maryland, dealers have to make certain disclosures regarding this practice, sometimes called spot delivery or yo-yo sales, which explain your rights if financing can't be finalized. If the contract that you signed is not able to be approved, you are not required to sign a new contract. So you just need to make sure that you're aware that this is a possibility, and don't get convinced by the dealership that you would have to sign something on different terms than what you had originally agreed to. So two main options when you're considering how to finance a vehicle is buying versus leasing. Of course, the major difference between the two is with buying, you actually own the vehicle and you can do with it as you please. With leasing, there's going to be a lot more restrictions. As far as costs, upfront costs with buying may be higher. There will still be upfront costs with leasing, but they'll be different than what you would be doing when you buy. Monthly payments for buying are traditionally a little higher because with leasing, you're only paying for the vehicle's depreciation during the time that you are leasing it. You can generally have a better car for less money. Leasing can be better for some. I mean, if you're someone who wants a new car every 3 or 4 years, if you are a low mileage driver, you take good care of your car, or if you want a more expensive car than you can afford to buy. But experts generally will say that for the long term, that buying a car is going to be a better financial decision. Market conditions right now are making everything much more expensive, even leases. There's inventory shortages, manufacturer incentives are down, lease mileage limits have gotten lower, and the rising residual values aren't being reflected in the lease terms. If you had leased something a couple of years ago, then the best deal might be buying out your lease when it expires. But as time goes on, there will be less of those deals out there. So prices are up, but because of that, there may be less depreciation over the next few years because of short supply. So when you are in the dealer's finance and insurance office, that's what the F&I office is, not only are you finalizing the paperwork and signing all of the documents, but they are going to try to sell you a lot of add-ons. This is a big profit center for the dealers, and you need to be very, very aware of what is going on. This is just a list of some of the things that we've seen. VIN etching, it's where they engrave the vehicle identification number into the windows to deter theft. You're not required to have it, and it's pretty unnecessary as all new cars have the VINs stamped in multiple places. Rust proofing and other protective coatings or interior sprays. For today's cars, the extra protection is not really necessary. Actually, just periodic cleaning is going to be the most beneficial to keeping your interior and exterior looking good. As far as extended warranty coverage, it may not provide much more protection than you already have through a factory warranty when you're talking about a new car. Maybe you want to consider it more with a used car, but is something else that you should research. You don't necessarily have to buy it through the dealer, and you don't necessarily have to buy it right away. Is wheel and tire warranties. Most cars don't have the expensive low profile tires that are more damage prone, so it may not, it's not necessarily going to be something that you need to have. Nitrogen filled tires, that's an interesting new one. Dealer may try to tell you that tires filled with nitrogen are less susceptible to pressure changes, but air is mostly nitrogen, and all tires are going to lose pressure over time. Pinstriping, mud flaps, door edge guards, unless you specifically ask for these things, you should refuse to pay for them. Really, really, really important. You have to read every document carefully. You don't sign something that you don't understand. And if the numbers don't look right to you, make them explain them to you. There is no 3-day right to cancel a contract, a car contract. I can't emphasize that more. It's really important that you understand all the numbers. If you have any statements or that you are relying on, any special arrangements or agreements that you have made with the dealer, they need to be in writing. It's once you leave the dealership, it's going to be very difficult to prove something was told to you if you don't have it in writing. And this is especially important as more and more contracts are provided in electronic formats on tablets or other digital mediums. So you need to make sure that you are reading everything, wherever it is, whether it's on a screen, whether it's when I recently purchased a vehicle, the entire desk was the screen, and you were signing on the desktop, but the actual top of a desk, not a desktop like you're thinking of as a computer, but the whole desk was actually the screen, which was good because it was big and you could see it. But you need to make sure that you've read every line and understand every number on those documents, and that every representation that has been made to you, and as far as your understanding of your agreement with the dealership, is in writing and signed by both parties. And now I'll hand it over to Dave.
And I am David.Elswick. I'm a Master Certified Master Technician. So start off with safety recalls. Recalls are repairs that are mandated by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration for safety defects. They can be initialized by the manufacturer, the vehicle distributor, or any kind of vehicle equipment distributor. Recalls are free of charge for consumers. You should never be charged for a recall. Usually when you take it in for a recall, they'll recommend a bunch of other things. Some of them may be necessary, some of them maybe not. That's pretty much it. Safety recalls can be for all kinds of things. And every manufacturer has recalls. There's the next slide. So if you want to find information on recalls, there's lots of resources. You can go directly to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration website. You can also go to recalls.gov, safecar.gov. You search by your VIN number. So the VIN number is your unique identification number that identifies your specific vehicle compared to all the other millions of vehicles. Your VIN number is a 17-digit number. You can find it either under your windshield on the corner of the dash. It's also located on what they call the B-pillar panel. And there's pictures of that on the next slide. So if you look on the bottom driver's corner of your windshield, you'll see the 17-digit identification number. That is required to be there so that police can identify your vehicle. If that is blocked, it is illegal, and I have seen people put in windshields that will block that number, and that is, like I said, illegal, because that's how police identify your vehicle. You can also find it on the door. When you open the door, if you look down on the bottom, usually it should say what brand of car you have, like Toyota, Hyundai, Kia, and then right next to it will be this identification number. That identification, it's a unique number that identifies your vehicle, but on the sticker, there's also lots of other things. So it would say the proper tire size. This one has tire pressure. A lot of times there's a separate sticker right next to this one that'll have tire identification information. So this also tells you the date that the vehicle was made. So this one says 8/16. This vehicle was produced 8/16. So 8 of 2016. And you might not have purchased this vehicle until maybe January of 17. So it's good to know when the vehicle was made versus when you bought it. I mean, it could give you kind of an idea of how long it was sitting on the lot. If they're more willing to make a deal, you know, if you look at this and you see that the car's been sitting on their lot for 6 months, they will probably make you a very good deal selling you that car. All right. Next slide. Maintaining your vehicle. One of the most important things when you're maintaining your vehicle is the owner's guide, the owner's manual. And on new cars, there are all kinds of owner's manuals. There's owner's manual, quick reference guide, warranty and maintenance guide. There's a radio guide. There are so many guides that come with the vehicle. And the most important resource you can have is the owner's manual. The owner's manual will tell you exactly how you're supposed to maintain your car, exactly what requirements your vehicle takes, like specifications of every single thing you could imagine about your vehicle is in the owner's manual. There's also a warranty and maintenance guide. So if you have any warranty issues or you have a question of your warranty terms, you can look in that guide and it will give you an exact description of how long something might be covered for in your warranty. And also if you have any issues having your warranty, you know, having a warranty being, you know, warranty being, you know, the dealership honoring your warranty, then you can look in the guide and it'll tell you exactly who you can contact and the next steps for any kind of warranty, any kind of warranty issues you might have. So the warranty guide is just as important as the owner's manual. So, I mean, maintaining your vehicle, it can help you prevent many common problems and the possibility of being stranded on the road. If you don't maintain your vehicle properly, it's not going to run properly. You know, you want to take care of your vehicle to make sure it runs properly, because you definitely don't want to be left stranded on the road because you forgot to do an oil change. There's multiple types of vehicles: gasoline, diesel, hybrid, and electric. Hybrid is exactly what it sounds like. It's a mix between electric and gasoline, so it has both systems. So it'll have a gasoline system and an electric vehicle system. So one of the most important things to do for your vehicle is an oil change. Check the owner's manual for the type of oil, the grade of oil, the amount that your engine holds. You change at least the intervals that the manufacturer specifies. Overdoing oil changes will not harm your engine. You don't want to do your oil changes too soon though, because I mean, there's a waste of money and resources. Oil filter, use a OEM or good quality aftermarket filter. That's for sure. If you're going to go to an auto parts store and pick out an oil filter, don't buy the cheapest filter. The oil filter, cheap filters will cause more restriction and it leads to a lack of oil in the important parts in your engine. So if you're going to choose an oil filter, make sure you choose a quality oil filter. Periodically, you want to just check for leaks on the ground at oil changes and before your oil changes. When you pull out of a parking lot, just make sure there's not a bunch of oil underneath the car. A long time ago, people used to get gas, and every time they check their gas, or every time they put gas, they would check the oil, check the fluids, and cars have become a lot more maintenance free. So that kind of has gone by the wayside. It's still a good habit. If you're at the gas station waiting for the gas to fill up, you can just check your oil, make sure that it's at the proper level. Some vehicles don't even have dipsticks. They rely on computerized oil monitors. So some things like BMWs and Mercedes, there's a gauge on your dashboard that will tell you your oil level. And if it's low, it will tell you check oil. So, I mean, that's a good thing to have, but it makes it a lot more difficult when you're changing the oil and you're trying to check to make sure you put the correct amount in. Because in order for those computerized monitors to run, the engine has to warm up and it's got to go a certain distance before it'll give you an accurate reading. So it's good to know. Like I said, check your owner's manual.
Excuse me,
Wiper
David.
blades are very important. Changes necessary every 12 months or when streaking. Wiper blades work best on clean windshields. Dirt and debris can prevent the blade from cleanly sweeping rain away. So if you just imagine the wiper blade is just one big piece of rubber. If there's dirt on the windshield or there's tar or some kind of bugs that the rubber can't streak away, it's not going to be able to, it's not going to cleanly sweep the rain away. There's just going to be streaks from the rubber going over whatever is on your windshield. So just as important as changing your wiper blades is making sure that your windshield is clean. Just because it looks clean doesn't necessarily mean that it is clean. Like I said, there could be dirt and bugs that will affect the wiper blades, and you do not want to have bad wiper blades when you need them. And it's something that most people don't realize until it starts raining, and then they check their wiper blades and they can't see. So just definitely make sure that you check your wiper blades. Don't get stranded with bad wiper blades.
Did someone have a question, Debbie?
Actually, I had one for David. You had mentioned to get a good quality oil filter.
Yeah,
I know it's not always about price, but are there certain brands that should be avoided or should be sought out?
yeah. Well, if you can get a original oil filter, those are always the best. And they're not really more expensive than the aftermarket ones. Aftermarket is convenient because you can just go to the auto parts store and pick it up. You don't have to go to a dealership or order it online. But price does have an effect on oil filters. And Fram is known as a big company and they don't have the best oil filters. I've seen a lot of cars that have had oil restrictions just based on that certain brand. So, but definitely, like I said, price does have an effect on oil filters. But more importantly, I think just making sure that if you're going to take your vehicle somewhere, that they're going to use a quality oil filter. See if they use an OEM oil filter. I imagine more people that are going to watch this are going to pay somebody to change the oil, not necessarily go buy an oil filter and oil. But if you do, I said, go with a reputable brand. Don't go with a cheap store brand.
Okay, thank you.
So, especially in inclement weather such as we're having now, listen to how long it normally takes your car to start. When you start and you turn the key, if it chucks, and vroom, it starts up, that's how long it normally takes your car to crank, then that's what your normal, that's what a good battery will sound like. So if you go get in your car and you go to start it, and it's vroom, and it's taking longer, then it could indicate that your battery is not strong enough to turn over the engine. Auto parts stores will check your battery for free. You just go to the parts store and ask them to check it. They'll come out to your car and check it, not a problem. They'll more than likely put it in for you if you need a battery as well. Some auto parts stores won't put in certain types of batteries just because of the labor required to put them in. But I mean, it's good to know that resource is there. Auto parts stores will check and replace your battery. Loose terminals will have the same effect. If you go out to your car and you don't have any power, you just turn the key, your dash lights don't come on. It's very possible that the terminal is loose or that corrosion is preventing it from getting that proper power to the cables. So you can pop your hood, just find the battery, wiggle the terminals, try not to touch them with your bare hands because that is corrosive. It's battery acid that spews out from the battery and it turns into corrosion. So definitely don't touch that with your bare hands. You can actually clean that off with Coca-Cola if you wanted to. You just need a neutralizer because it is an acid. So if you have some sort of neutralizer such as baking soda or Coca-Cola, it will take the corrosive acid right off of those terminals. Clean it with a small brush like a toothbrush and it'll be good to go. It's like corrosion will prevent your battery from starting. So just take a look at that if your vehicle has trouble starting. Like I said, the most important thing is just pay attention to how long it takes to start your car normally. And if it seems like it's taking longer, make sure to get your battery tested. And like I said, it's free. There's no reason not to. So brakes. So brakes are like the biggest thing for a dealership to sell you. So squeals can be normal. Scraping, grinding is abnormal. Brake pads are normally made from a ceramic or metallic base. So if you can look at the brake pad on the right side, you can see little speckles. It's gray with little silver speckles. Those are actual metal flakes that are inside the brake pad. The better brake pads use ceramic. So cheaper brake pads you do use a metallic base because it's cheaper to produce. Ceramic is more expensive to produce, so more expensive brake pads are usually going to be ceramic. Some Ferraris and Lamborghinis use carbon fiber brake pads, which is an entire other level and incredibly expensive. But cheap brakes cause problems and premature wear. So because of the excessive metallic composition of the brake pads, because there's so much metal in them, it will wear into the rotors. So your rotors are made out of metal, the brake pads are made out of this fibrous material that includes metal. So that's sometimes why squeals can be normal. Squeals can be normal because it's a metal-on-metal contact. The scraping or grinding is metal eating into the rotor itself. So definitely don't cheap on brakes because it'll cost you way more in the long run. Like I said, the cheap brake pads will destroy your rotors, and rotors are very expensive. So definitely don't cheap out. Check brake wear at manufacturer's recommended intervals or at least once a year if no recommendations. Every time you get an oil change, they should be checking the brakes. There's no reason for you to go once a year, really, because, like I said, you should be getting down to every oil change. Anytime you go to any kind of repair shop or anything, they should do a walk around multi-point inspection and let you know exactly how thick those are. Brake fluid absorbs moisture and can corrode brake system components over time. Fluid should be flushed at manufacturer's recommendations or every 2 years or 30,000 miles. So when you go into a car dealership, you take your car for service, or not necessarily a dealership, but a repair shop, they will recommend a lot of supposed maintenance. Dealerships have their own maintenance recommendations versus manufacturers. So that's why I say checking your owner's manual is very important because a dealership could recommend something that they say your vehicle needs that the manufacturer doesn't. Brake fluid is a big one that I see a lot of complaints about. They recommend a brake fluid flush. My car didn't need it, but a lot of manufacturers actually recommend it. So definitely check your owner's manual to see the recommendations. This is a little picture of exactly how your brake system works. You put your foot on the pedal, it pushes the fluid into the master cylinder, which pushes all that fluid to the calipers, and the calipers compress the brake pads in and push onto the rotor. So it's actually friction that stops the vehicle, and that also creates a lot of heat. So when the brakes get hot, a lot of times you can hear squeals from the metallic composition of the pads heating up. So sometimes that can be normal. Any doubts, just make sure to have somebody check it out. So belts and hoses. Inspect your belts regularly for cracks. Large cracks means your belt should be replaced. Small cracks are normal. A lot of belts nowadays will not show cracks. So the splines of the belt, as you can see in this picture, where you can see the splines are cracked, those actually start to wear down. And the belt will look normal, even though it will be worn because the ridges of the belt grooves are worn. A lot of manufacturers, try to make their vehicles as maintenance free as possible, and these belts will last over 100,000 miles. You could really go a long time with a stock dry belt. Inspect hoses for leaks, cracks, swelling, or soft spots. Replace if any are found. So if you pop the hood and you just see this big bulging hose, it's not supposed to look like that. It's supposed to look like the hose on the right. And one other thing is these are all made out of rubber. These are all rubber components, just like your tires. Tires will wear out, dry rot, get soft over time. Same thing happens to all the rubber components in your engine. And it's also not just radiator hoses. It could be a vacuum hose. Vacuum hoses do wear out over time, and they'll get brittle and dry and crack, just like this dry belt is. A lot of manufacturers try to, like I said, make their vehicles as maintenance-free as possible, so things are typically lasting longer than they used to. Timing belts cannot be easily inspected and should be replaced as specified by the manufacturer. A failed timing belt can cause total engine failure. So I don't think there's very few vehicles that still use timing belts. Timing belts were very popular 10 years ago. If you buy an older car, definitely make sure that the timing belt has been replaced, or check to see if it uses a timing chain. Most newer vehicles use a chain, which is a big piece of metal that is very hard to break or wear. Timing belts are made out of, like I said, the same rubber that tires are made out of, and they do crack and wear. But as manufacturers try to make their vehicles as maintenance-free as possible, they've all gone to timing chains. But just make sure that if you have one, it gets changed. So tires are one of the most important things on your vehicle is to determine drivability. So check tire pressure and look for unusual wear or damage. Always check tire pressure when tires are cold. Vehicles made since 2007 have had a tire pressure monitoring system, and will throw a little light on the dash. People always would be confused by the light because I should have put a picture of the light on it. It's a exclamation mark with uh, two apostrophes. So it does not look like a tire. It's supposed to look like a picture of a tire with an exclamation mark in the middle, but it does not resemble that. And when that light comes on, most people have no idea what it is. But tire pressure warning light, it means to check your tires. Like I said, it's exclamation mark with two apostrophes at the end. So always look at your tires. You go to get in your car, you can just look at the tire and see if it's low, see any abnormalities. Sometimes, such as this bulge in the tire on the left side picture, that just happen over time. Where the tire is constructed, sometimes the tires come separated and it turns into a bulge on the sidewall of the tire. And that's very dangerous because you could hit a pothole and that bulge could blow out and you'll have an instant tire failure. And depending on how fast you go, depending on how fast you're going, that could be very detrimental. It could be life threatening. So definitely make sure to look at your tires. You hit a curb, there's a little chip in the tire from hitting a curb. You might not think that you hit the curb very hard, but it can cause severe damage to your tire. The tires or the sidewall of your tires are usually pretty soft because the softness of the tire depends on the comfort of the ride. So if your tires are really hard, you're gonna have a really harsh ride. If the tires are really soft, you're gonna have a softer ride. So most manufacturers will put softer tires on vehicles so that they have a softer ride. So one little ding on a curb could cause a pretty significant amount of damage, such as that in the middle. And on the right side, you can see this uneven tire wear where the tire is starting to, the tread is starting to separate from the sidewall. This is probably pretty typical of improper alignment. You can see on the edges where it looks like it's scuffing up against the road as it drives along. This is very dangerous. That you could also hit a pothole and they could separate the entire tread off the tire. Like if the tires are very important to the drivability of your vehicle, cheap tires will make your vehicle drive poorly. So definitely make sure to pay attention to the tires. If your tires are worn when it's raining outside, it will take you 2 to 3 times as long to stop. You might not get traction when you're hitting the accelerator at a stoplight. When you're making a turn and you don't have the traction, you might not be able to fully make the turn. So tires are very important. Make sure to check your tires, have them checked, pay very careful attention. Also overinflated tires. So there's a tire information placard on the side of your door, the B pillar, as I was talking about the VIN number before. Beginning in 2003, vehicle manufacturers are directed to place tire information placards in a standardized location. So that standardized location, when you open the door, is on the actual body of the vehicle. It's not going to be on, sometimes it is on the door itself, but most of the time it's on the actual B pillar, down where it would say the name of the vehicle. So where it says Toyota or Kia, there would be the two little stickers, and they'll give you tire information. The tire information has the original tire size and the cold tire inflation pressure. So when you're checking your tire pressure, you want to make sure that it's cold because air does expand and contract. When it's cold outside, air gets denser, and when air is warm, or when it's warm outside, air expands. So if you're driving on cold tires, the pressure will expand. And that's something you want to keep in mind because if you're checking your tire pressure when it's warm, it might be low when you go to check it when it's cold. So why they specify that you should check it when it's cold. So really important thing is to make sure that your tire pressure is correct because, like I said, overinflated tires will cause a pop out. Some tires have their own tire, and that is not what you want to use to fill your tire. You want to use what's on the placard because the tire lists maximum pressure, and you don't want maximum pressure. You want what your manufacturer specified. Maximum pressure could cause a blowout. So hybrid vehicle benefits, in general, your hybrid vehicle should not cost much more to maintain than a regular car. You should get a lot better gas mileage, lower wear and tear. It should last longer with less out of pocket expenses. So for a long time, dealerships were only people that could work on hybrids because they were the only ones that had the training and they were the only ones that had the repair manuals. That's no longer true. You can go to a lot of repair shops to get your hybrid vehicle fixed. Just make sure that they're experienced. So one of the things, in general, hybrid vehicles have been more reliable than conventional vehicles. There's less strain on the engine, there's less strain on the drivetrain component, because there's really two drivetrains. There's the electric drivetrain and there's the conventional drivetrain. So a lot of times hybrid vehicles have been more reliable and needed less maintenance, and you get better gas mileage. The only thing about that is when you do need maintenance or you do need a repair, it is typically a lot more expensive. There's a lot more components in a hybrid vehicle. There's inverters and converters, electric motors, there's all kinds of different things that are very expensive to replace if they need replacement. Luckily, they've been lasting a long time, so they typically don't need to be replaced. And this is actually the picture of a hybrid. So check your owner's manual for manufacturer maintenance schedule. Some hybrid systems use special cooling and they're liquid cooled. Some are even refrigerant cooled. So some will use your coolant to heat up the battery, and some will use your AC system to cool down the battery. You have to make sure to look at your owner's manual. There's always a possibility of some part of the special hybrid system that will fail. These components are very expensive. Luckily, the government has mandated that manufacturers provide extended longer warranties for these hybrid components. So battery components and a lot of hybrid components typically have 100,000 to 150,000 mile warranty, 8 to 10 years. They are warranted for a long time, and usually, like I said, they're usually very dependable. The only thing is that when they're not dependable, they're really expensive to replace. So hybrid vehicles do come with some added precautions over regular vehicles, and this also applies to electric vehicles too, in case you're interested in that. So because hybrids do have a high voltage electric system, you have to make sure that you understand that it can be very dangerous to touch some of those components. They're usually indicated by orange or blue colored cabling throughout the engine compartment and the vehicle body. Sometimes they'll be in the trunk because the batteries might be in the trunk. So never touch any of this wiring, stay away from it. In the event of a crash, if you see any smoke or fluid leaking from the battery component or your vehicle, just stay far away from the vehicle and call the fire department. So there's some of the things about these hybrid and electric vehicle batteries is during the construction of them, they are really just multiple like C-size, D-size batteries that are wired in series. So these little tiny batteries provide together a large amount of power. But if just one of those little batteries is damaged, so if you hit a speed bump too hard or you hit something in the road that damages the battery pack or something like an accident, if it damages just one of those little tiny battery cells, then it could cause thermal runaway. And that thermal runaway will cause fire and toxic chemicals to be released. So one of the things to be really concerned about is if you're ever in an accident, you see any kind of fire or smoke, you see anything leaking, just stay far away and call the fire department. And that, that's also true if you're charging an electric vehicle. If you ever see any smoke while you're charging an electric vehicle, just stay away, call the fire department, because that indicates that, in the battery, one little defect spread out to the rest of the battery, and it's possible that it's the start of a thermal runaway. So thermal runaway means it's tough to be controlled. And this, if you saw the picture of the hybrid vehicle, this is an electric vehicle. There's far fewer components. There is so far fewer components. So they need far little maintenance when compared to a typical gasoline powered. There's less fluids, extended brake wear intervals, because they use regenerative braking as opposed to using the friction as I explained earlier, for normal braking, this uses magnets inside the electric motor to kind of slow the vehicle down. So regenerative braking rarely ever uses the brakes unless you're in a panic stop. Most of the time, hybrids and electric vehicles will use, like I said, the magnets inside the motor or the transmission gearbox to regenerate power to send back to the battery, as opposed to wasting it through the friction of your brake pads. Electric vehicle maintenance, a lot of it is the same as hybrid maintenance because, like I said, hybrids have an electric system. The cooling system, make sure to check your owner's manual, see if it uses any special coolant or refrigerant. From time to time, you may need to add coolant to pop the hood. There should be a reservoir. On the reservoir, it will say E and F. E will be empty and F will be full. You just want to make sure that it's somewhere in between those two marks. Check the owner's manual for the specific type of coolant, because you don't want to go to Advanced Auto Parts and get the wrong coolant. Mixing several coolants that are incompatible could cause gelling and complete failure of your cooling system. So definitely make sure you check the owner's manual for the specific type of fluid that you're adding, if you're ever adding any fluid. So there could be brake fluid, windshield washer fluid, and gearbox, differential, or transaxle fluid, depending on what your manufacturer calls it. So, for instance, a lot of people don't know, Teslas do have an oil filter. A lot of Teslas have an oil filter, but it's not for engine motor. It is for your gearbox. They say your gearbox is sealed for life and you should never change the fluid. But just be aware that it's kind of interesting. You can lift up a Tesla and it does have an oil filter, which could be confusing to some people. Like I said, just make sure to check your owner's manual for any specific recommendations on exactly what your vehicle needs. Brakes, EVs rarely use the brake system to stop the vehicle through the use of regenerative braking. Like I said, your brake pads could fall apart before they wear out. I've seen a lot of Priuses where the brake pads turned to dust before they were actually worn because they rarely ever use the brake pad material because they're using regenerative braking. So it's just a good thing to know. Battery system replacement. EV batteries do have limited lifespan, just like every other battery. Battery technology is constantly evolving and newer batteries could possibly last the life of the vehicle. They do provide longer warranties. So like I said, battery technology is constantly evolving. It's all relatively new. It's all constantly being researched and developed. Manufacturers have not been consistent with the technology, the availability, the reliability. Electric vehicles have kind of been very broad and generic throughout manufacturers. One manufacturer might use one technology, another might use completely different technology to accomplish the same goal. So just know that if you're buying an electric vehicle and sometimes any kind of newer technology, you're taking a chance. You're kind of the research, you're kind of the guinea pig. So before you buy any new technology, research, do more research. And that really is any kind of technology, not just battery technology or vehicles. So routine service at each fuel stop. So as I said before, people used to check all their fluids every time they got gas. And now vehicles are just so well maintenance free that that's not really required anymore. It's still good practice to have. So, if you're getting gas, it doesn't hurt to check your oil. Maybe check your windshield washer fluid. You definitely don't want to be stranded without windshield washer fluid. You get mud on your windshield and now you're driving 60 miles an hour and you can't get it off your windshield. It's a very important thing to check and have when you need it. Don't want to be out of it when you need it. Once a month, check your tire pressure and look for unusual tire wear or damage. Me, I kind of just look at my tires as I get in the car. If I'm coming around from the passenger side, I'll just look at those tires, make sure that the tires aren't flat or damaged. I just do it as I get in my car. It's not a very time-consuming check. So check all your fluid levels, coolant reservoir, power steering, transmission, add as required. Battery, clean and tighten cables as required. You shouldn't have to tighten your cables. Your battery cable should stay tight. Unless your battery is having to be jump started or replaced, they shouldn't loosen on their own. But they will get corroded. So definitely make sure to clean them as necessary. Check all lights and other electrical items for correct operation. It's so important to do. If you're at a gas station, you can hit your brakes and ask somebody walking by, hey, can you look at my brake lights? You definitely don't want to be pulled over by a police officer for not having a brake light. It's an easy check to make. It's usually very easy to, install a bulb, or very cheap to have somebody replace the bulb. I would rather, ask somebody and have them tell me no than have a police officer stop me for having no lights. It's like clean your windshield, clean your wiper blades, lubricate locks and hinges. That's more important during the winter months because as the temperature gets colder and there's frost and ice, it can freeze your locks. You go put your key in and your lock is frozen, you can't get into your car. Most cars have keyless entry now, so it's not too big of a deal, but if you don't have keyless entry, it's something to remember. All of these are helpful websites for sales and service. Research, research, research. And these are very important places to do research.
All right. Does anyone have any questions? All right. It was so comprehensive that nobody has any questions. And I mean it. You guys did a wonderful job of covering a lot of ground in a short amount of time. It's funny, I think back to 7 years ago when this first started, when we first started offering this workshop, there were no EV vehicles. And so it's really interesting to learn about the differences between those vehicles. And, I think folks are really thinking, should I get a hybrid? Should I get an EV? So I appreciate you highlighting the differences.
Another important thing to keep in mind though is EV parts are not as readily available. I get calls from consumers that have been waiting a year and a half just for some sort of part.
Really?
And they can't drive their vehicle. They get rental vehicles for a year and a half. So parts aren't as readily available.
Is that a post-pandemic issue, or was it an issue even before the pandemic?
Well, the pandemic was a big cause of it. But like I said, because it's all a new technology, they're just not available. They're not producing them in mass quantities. Just the parts aren't there in the quantities available or needed.
Right. Okay.
You might completely come out with a whole nother different solution to do something, and now not make these other parts anymore. So.
Yeah. Right. And Sharon, thank you for your 27 years of experience and buying a new car. Not an easy task, but you always, hit the most critical points, which is, to do your research and to be informed. So I purchased a new car a few years ago, and I watched this workshop again because I needed to be reminded. There's a lot that goes into the process, and you've done a great job of highlighting that, yep, it's not going to happen overnight. You need to prepare, but this is what you do. That last slide that you showed, David, was great with all of those resources. So, Sharon and David, thank you for once again coming back. Sharon, we're going to miss you as you are moving on to bigger and better things. David, hope to see you back again in the future. Thank you for your time. It was great to see you. It was good to see everybody who joined us in the workshop today, and we appreciate those who are watching this on YouTube. It's always good for us to spend some time together, and I hope you'll come to the next workshop, which is on November 14th. The topic is police encounters, and you might not think that you you might not think you would need to attend, but I'm going to send you some information I want you to look at. So hopefully we'll see you then. Please complete the post-workshop evaluation. I'll put that in my follow-up email to you. So everyone, have a great week. And as always, let us know how legal aid can help you. Bye.
Thank you.